Thank you very much. Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today. I hope you've all had a good lunch. No discussion is complete without a discussion on tech and digital. And with that, we are extremely fortunate today to be able to hear from four of the most exciting players in the region. Southeast Asia has given birth to many global and regional tech champions, many of whom are based in Malaysia. Let me first introduce the gentlemen, the panelists that we have today. We have Mr. Patrick Grove, co-founder and CEO of Catcha Group. Patrick is one of the earliest and leading tech investors in the region. You mentioned the word iProperty, you mentioned Carly's, iCar Asia, Catcha comes to mind. Secondly, we have Mr. Eric Chang, co-founder and CEO of Qasim. It's Malaysia's first unicorn, and Qasim is also reinventing the way we buy and sell cars in the region. Next, we have Mr. Effendi Shahul Hamid. Effendi is the CEO of CIMB Digital Assets, owner of Touch 'n Go, one of the most, if not the most, recognizable brands in Malaysia. And also we have Mr. Amir Zakwan, Chief Strategy Officer for Aerodyne Group, the #1 drone company globally. Gentlemen, good afternoon. Thank you very much for joining us today. Okay. So we all know tech is a key enabler in driving sustainable growth. It's also a key priority for the Malaysian government. Over the years, we've seen many schemes, many master plans to develop the tech sector, from as early as the multimedia super corridor, if you recall, in the late 90s, to what we have, the National Digital Blueprint, which was introduced earlier this year. Hence, my first question will be focused on using Malaysia as a base. And I'll be directing that to our pioneer investor in the tech scene in the region, Patrick. So Patrick, why did you choose to come to Malaysia many, many years ago?
Yeah, you know what? Hey, Marwan, thanks so much for having us, and Versa Malaysia, thanks so much for putting on this event. It's always great to speak, to Malaysian investors. And I think, one of the things that was important is that we always knew we wanted to build Southeast Asian internet businesses, right? So if you're familiar with, say, iProperty in Malaysia, we built the same business and the same website across all of the Southeast Asian markets and Hong Kong. And I think very early on in our career, we were trying to decide whether to be based in Singapore or to be based in Malaysia. And we chose Malaysia. And I think there's a number of reasons. One is there's actually a massive audience that speaks English, right? Most of these businesses, you're using English on a daily basis to build your business, whether it's your management team, your executives, investors. And we knew that out of all the markets in Southeast Asia, you'd be able to build a great management team who speak English as a primary language out of either Singapore or Malaysia. Thailand harder, Philippines harder, Indonesia harder, but Singapore, Malaysia. So number one, it was down to those two. Number two is that we realized that, and you'll see this kind of, when you look at Qasim and other companies, most consumer internet businesses in Southeast Asia target middle class and below, right? So let me say target middle class and below. When you look at, say, Singapore as a consumer internet market, most Singaporeans are upper class or upper middle class, right? And they may only be 1 million. And we look at Malaysia. Malaysia is one of the biggest middle class markets in Southeast Asia, and they're very adaptable, and they're very open to trying new internet products. So when you think about sort of a large domestic market that you want to tap onto, right? Malaysia is a significantly larger market than Singapore, right? So we look at something like iProperty or CarList or Qasim, an example. These are always going to be businesses in Malaysia than in Singapore. Then thirdly, and most importantly, Malaysia has such great talent, such great innovation, so many great leaders, yet the cost base is incredibly low, whether it's rent, wages, marketing, just any cost of doing business is significantly less in Malaysia than Singapore or any other part. So for a bunch of those reasons, we decided very, very early on to choose Malaysia as our hub.
And based on your experience, Patrick, over the years, what can Malaysia or the government do further to support startups in Malaysia? You've clearly gone through many ups and downs. What can Malaysia do, or is it enough? With the MSC that we had earlier and now the National Digital Blueprint.
You know what's funny, and I think some of the other guys in the panel, every time they always go, "What can the government do? What can the government?" I mean, sometimes the best answer is just kind of like get out of the way. Just let us build great internet businesses, right? Like, and I don't mean that flippantly, right? Like all of us who build internet businesses, we just want clarity on rule of law. We just want clarity on information and data and privacy. Like we just want to build a great business. Like we don't rely on government for funding. We don't rely on government uh, contracts. We don't rely on government in any way, shape, or form, right? And I think, and this is not a Malaysian entrepreneur thing. This is a global tech entrepreneur thing, right? If you look at tech entrepreneurs in the US or even now tech entrepreneurs in China right now, if you ask them what do they want from government, they will say, we just want government to leave us alone. We actually don't want anything from government other than a stable, like we just want like a flat playing field, and we want to know what the rules are. And I think it's the same in Malaysia. I think as every internet entrepreneur, we just want to know what the rules are. We want to know what the playing field is, and then we go ahead and build our great businesses. And then anytime the government does support the tech ecosystem, like we love that. That's great. It's incredible because there's a lot of countries that the government doesn't support as well. So everything that whether it's MDEC or Cradle, that all the support they do, and we work with all of them, that's great. But at the end of the day, as entrepreneurs, like we know that we build businesses and we don't rely on government support to build those businesses. So if anything, we just want a level playing field and we want the rules to be very, very clearly defined so that we can go build great businesses.
Yeah, so basically reducing friction, ensuring a freer market. And I'm going to ask the next question to Amir from Aerodyne because you are ranked number 1 in the world by Drone Industry Insights. How has being based in Malaysia helped you get there?
Well, thank you, Novan, and also thank you, Invest Malaysia, for having us today. It's an honor. Well, I think for starters, we chose to be domiciled in Malaysia. A lot of it is really, we started out in Malaysia. Our talent base is 80% Malaysia. Our technology is 100% Malaysian made. And from the funding side, we had a lot of support from the government. We had a lot of support from OSTI, especially in putting a platform to showcase our tech to other agencies which we derive revenue streams from. But at the same time, from a clientele perspective, the two major anchor clients that we have in Malaysia allowed us to build that credibility and also to build that trust in the overseas market, right? So they were like, oh, okay, so you serviced the national oil company of Malaysia. Like, oh, okay, you must be somewhere, right? You must be that good. So that allowed us to really use that platform to go international. We're not stopping there, really. There's a lot more collaboration with the government of Malaysia in many shapes and form. For example, our founder is on many panels, committees that is steering the direction of the digital economy in Malaysia. For example, the Malaysian IR 4.0 Council, etc. And we hope that this will continue so that we can enable and facilitate the growth of many more technology startups in Malaysia that can expand overseas.
Okay. So it's really about building the credentials, right? I mean, you have some anchor clients that help you build the credentials globally, to basically go out there and win more business. My next question is going to be posed to Eric. We've heard you highlight the importance of localization of products, which is very relevant for a market like Southeast Asia, right? As you operate in various countries within Southeast Asia for your business. Now, what has been the experience like? You're operating your headquarters out of Malaysia as your base. How do you bridge the regional nuances between Malaysia versus the other countries, like Indonesia, for example?
Yeah, sure. I think firstly, thanks for having us on this panel as well with the likes of Patrick, Amil, and FND. I think if you look at Malaysia, right, it's exactly like Patrick described as rising middle class, growing economy. It's very similar in terms of the market dynamics, like you look at Indonesia and Thailand. And exactly what Custom is doing in the market is we are trying to change the experience of buying and selling cars, even financing right now, doing a little bit more on extending that to car ownership. But to kind of sum it all up is we're delivering peace of mind. We are delivering the trust, that's very much lacking, especially in the used car market. And when you look at that, it comes in, the pain point are similar, very, very much the main pain points are similar, whether it's Indonesia, Thailand, or Malaysia. But the localization comes in a form where how do you validate that with a localized approach. And the localized approach when it comes to delivering trust, peace of mind is there are some small differences. Like if you talk about the best selections of cars, right? Is there are going to be 1,000 cars, 2,000 cars on the platform, respectively, in each country from custom that you can buy from. But the construct of that inventory makes whether it resonate very well with the local audience on the context of the age of the cars, the condition, the price, and how do you have that logistic capability to be able to deliver these cars between intercities. Like for example, 70% of our cars transactions are happening between one city to another. Think of it like from KL, we deliver the car to JB or to Penang, or likewise Surabaya to Jakarta. So these are the small differences where while you are trying to deliver the same thing, to tackle the same pain point and address with a good solution, the way you execute, you operate could be very different simply because of you're operating in different country, different framework, but the objectives stay the same. So that localization is not just on an approach where how on the technology aspects, the data side, you want to be able to localize and suit the target customer, the segment that you are tackling. But at the same time, also it fits on the ground where the way we expand on our physical infrastructures like retail centers, where do we have it? Do we have it in the shopping centers to capture the footfall, or we have it in like a showroom-ish with the rest of the other new car showrooms that are close by? So the understanding these nuances is very key. The smallest details, even like the copywriting, like we talk about peace of mind and trust. In Malaysia, it's simply just that when you log onto the platform, you see that peace of mind was kind of everywhere on the website. But when it comes to like in Indonesia, you can't say peace of mind. Nobody can relate to that. So in Indonesia, our tagline is "Tenang ada kasih," right? So you have that calm, that peace, and people can relate, right? So these are the things that I think once you operate deep in the market, you'll be able to get it right. But starting from Malaysia has that advantage, right? Because market's similar. You get your product market fit very quickly, and the way you expand, the way you execute, there is a playbook to follow. And it's just more of a tactical approach when it comes to really getting things on a month-to-month basis. How do you grow the business? How do you expand? So these are the details we have to work more hard in terms of getting it right.
I see. Now, I'm going to touch on a bit about evolution of businesses. Now, before I do that, to the viewers out there, if you do have any questions, feel free to put in your questions in the chat box. I will be able to monitor it and will weave in your questions accordingly. Now, back to evolution. To keep up with sustainable growth, we need to continuously evolve. The introduction of the National Digital Blueprint and its initiatives is one example of the country adapting to change. I'm going to pose this next question to Effendi. Touch and Go, as we all know, has come a very long way. From the time when we were using the cards in 1997, using it, mainly for toll, and then later on to public transport, introduction of smart tags, and then later on e-wallets in 2017, and potentially, who knows, even a digital bank in the future. What are the challenges that you have faced and the learnings, from your evolution and digital transformation when you first started out with the Touch and Go cards to where you are today?
Yeah, thanks for that, Novan, and again, thank you to JP and Busa for having us on the panel this afternoon. I think the question you asked is a pertinent one, right? And I think that the main thing that we have to focus on is that if we stay the way we are, we're just not going to get anywhere, right? And I think that the adage of what got you here is not going to get you there is very, very clear. I think where CIMB is concerned, we've kind of taken that on board fairly early on, right? So within the digital asset stable, you have Touch and Go, the Touch and Go e-wallet company, and certainly the digital banks in Philippines and Vietnam. And the reason those businesses are there is because of the need for us to evolve. And from a challenges perspective, and you brought up Touch and Go, and Touch and Go, yes, it's been around for the last 20 years or so. But I think very early on, we realized that if we stayed in that business alone and only in that business, we probably will not be able to compete, nor will we be able to realize the full equity value of our holdings. So we very quickly went into that joint venture with Ant. That came the Touch and Go e-wallet, and today that's been a really, really good investment for us. It's operated well within the functions of what we operated, and it also has complemented the old Touch and Go brand and offerings very well. When you come to when you come to challenges, I think these things are all intrinsically wielded, right? And the first thing that you got to do, you got to have a very, very supportive board and executive management. And at CIMB, we've been fortunate to be able to have that. I remember, I mean, I can share this with you when I first presented the Touch and Go e-wallet investment joint venture to my board. The first thing that they said was, "Effendi, you got to be crazy. You're bringing a competition into the market." But I do think that in general, the boards are in agreement that if you do not disrupt yourselves, someone else will, right? So to that extent, I think at CIMB, we handled that very, very well. The second challenge, of course, is to make the regulatory environment is understanding and the regulatory environment is conducive towards those businesses and those kinds of evolution going on in Malaysia. And we are fortunate in Malaysia to have very good regulators who are very far-sighted. We've been regulated by Bank Negara from day one. We've got good supporting organizations within Bursa and, of course, the SC, right? And I think that that whole understanding the regulatory environment, understanding the motivations of regulators, and understanding market conduct within the context of building a sustainable tech business becomes very important. So we've had, so I wouldn't say that those are challenges, but I would say that for large companies like banking companies wanting to venture into offshoot digital businesses, executive support is key, board support is key, regulatory oversight and understanding is key. And I think if you can handle those things well within the context of business build, your chances of becoming successful would increase quite heavily.
Yeah, and I have to say the regulatory oversight also give confidence, right? Especially in the business that you're in, with regards to e-wallet, having this being scrutinized by the regulators, that basically give confidence with regards to your money is basically safe, with the wallet.
Yeah, no, very much so, Novan. I think that if you kind of dovetail this back into the first question that you asked the panel, I think one of the main reasons people do business in Malaysia is because it's got a very secure environment, right? And consumer protection is very high. And companies who operate here, like the gentleman on this panel today, are all subject to those kinds of restrictions. So I think that it's very key.
Yeah. So I mean, it's a good combination of what Patrick was mentioning earlier, right? Reduce friction. We don't need funding or so much funding, but clear the way. Let us do our jobs, right? It's a global business. We need to compete, and therefore it needs to be efficient. I think that's important. But at the same time, where the regulators come in and play a role is also, provide that trust, provide the rule of law, the governance, so that people feel that their investments are basically safe when they invest in the Malaysian investment. Okay.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah. Now I'm going back to Eric, looking to the future. Now, first of all, congrats on becoming Malaysia's first unicorn. Now, looking to the future, how will customs operations evolve? I mean, you are already disrupting the market, right? The way we buy and sell cars on the market is different now with customs. I mean, from my own perspective, buying and selling cars in Malaysia was always quite of a tedious, time-consuming process. There was also always an element of trust because you don't know who is the counterparty buying from you. Will they close the transaction? Will they run away with your car? There's also that lack of trust. Or am I buying a lemon? Customs is clearly changing this whole market, right? You're disrupting the market. You're not really disrupting, you're creating a new market. How do you see customs operations evolving from where you are today? I mean, are you planning to expand into other verticals? I know you mentioned financing as one point just now. Is your focus going to be on other verticals or potentially increasing your footprint, within Southeast Asia and beyond?
Yep, sure. So I think if you look at the process of, like you described, buying and selling cars in the market, it usually has been a very traditional one. It's very troublesome to just get through, and it should be enjoyable. I think that's the way we think about it when we created the solution, right? So coming to, next year is going to be the 7th year of CASM, right? So we've been around for quite a number of years. And I would say that we are still at the very beginning of the things that we are doing, we want to achieve. We see a lot of potential as how we are expanding in the market. Mainly two things that we are trying to create right now. I think the first thing is the market itself. We are right now at about less than 2% of the total when it comes to the penetrations for CASM in market share, and the entire digital online experience when it comes to buying selling cars is still a very low single digit percentage of market share. So I think you see a large market that is untapped and largely offline, almost like 10 years, 15 years ago when you look at e-commerce, where nobody, most people buy things offline. And now you kind of see that transit into a very different environment where people are just buying almost everything online, which now we are doing that with the second biggest asset class, right? Cars in Southeast Asia. And that's something that we are trying to instill, right? That's trust, because it's a big ticket size item. People do not buy it very often. So they want to be sure and be in control, right, of the process when it comes to doing the buying and the selling process. So we were expanding very clearly that we are trying to expand this service to more people, more markets within Southeast Asia. The second thing is we are looking at the market as, people are not just having that distrust, that frictions when it comes to buying and selling cars. Is, actually the entire ownership journey, be it financing, insurance, the after sales, the warranty of the car. So at various point of owning a car, there's a lot of areas that we can further innovate. And I think when we look at the customer pain point, the segments that we are serving, we always ask ourselves, right, who is our customers? What do they want? And then we kind of work backwards towards creating solutions that serve them better. Because after all, that's exactly the reason why we are here today, right? So I think if you look at it as the second point is I'm trying to get to in the way we are expanding the business operation, is to digitalize the entire journey so that we could continue to extend that lifetime value with the people who bought a car with us. And we continue to serve them on insurance renewal, financing them, and if they has the need to have a second purchase and all, we give them a very well-informed decisions on the current car, how much is being valued at based on the conditions that we have gotten to understand so far. And here is the next car that you can purchase. That serve, maybe you already have a bigger family compared to when you bought a car with us, you're still single. So I think those sort of things that help us understand better, and the potential of us realizing that is almost like us creating an ecosystem out of one single platform. And I think that's where we are heading to right now in the next couple of years.
No, that sounds so exciting, especially if you think about it, cars is your second largest asset for most people. Some people save up to buy a car, and changing that entire process, that entire value chain, it's really making lives better for a lot of people. Now, speaking about evolution, Amir, with regards to Aerodyne's story, you started as an aerial imagery company. You've pivoted now to data intelligence, integrated solutions, and drone tech, data tech, digital transformation. Can you share with us the journey of your business evolution? Was this always part of the long-term strategy from the beginning, or you had something else in mind?
Not at all. Today is the 7th birthday of Aerodyne. 10th of November. So today is the 7th birthday. And since 2014, we have had at least 4 what we call evolutionary curves or pivots, right? If you will, along the way. And you're right. We started off as an aerial imagery company, which then we pivoted into data capture. And management of these data for our clients. And this was the market demand in 2015, right? So we were hot in that market, we were the right place at the right time. But then again, when we started managing data, we started capturing data, managing them for our clients. We realized that actually manpower not enough. So we had to build our own proprietary artificial intelligence system to augment this capability to sieve through terabytes upon terabytes of data that's coming through our data platforms on a daily basis. from across the globe, cutting across multiple types of asset classes. When we talk about asset classes, it's like power lines, telco assets, wind turbines, solar farms, etc. And then after that, once we had we started building our AI, proprietary AI, we then subsequently pivoted into what we call data intelligence. Then this is the so what bit, right? So the providing insights on asset integrity for large scale operations. This was in 2018 roughly. And then again, evolving with technological advancements, market demand, etc., we then evolved into what we call a DT3 company, and I'll explain what that means, right? So DT, the first DT is what we call drone technology. This is the data capture bit. We can use multiple platforms to capture data, be it drones, satellite imagery, or ROVs, whatever. The second DT is what we call our data technology. So these are all our proprietary data platforms that we have built in-house, talent based in Malaysia, as I mentioned. And last but not least is what we call our digital transformation agenda, which is really using complementary technologies such as IoT, data analytics, etc., to better serve our clients, expand what we call the breadth and depth of the services that we provide to our clients. But now we are on the cusp of a new sort of evolutionary curve right now. And this would mean the usage of autonomous drones, which are essentially smart robots, smart aero robots that are able to make decisions while flying. With the advent of edge computing, etc., we are at the cusp of this new curve, and hence, what would that mean to us in terms of revenue streams, in terms of services that we provide to our clients? And this allows us to really expand the scope and the depth of our services, as well as tap into new verticals which we typically did not focus on before because technology was not there, right? So imagine autonomous drones. Imagine them having these smart robots flying, doing surveillance, real estate management, etc., and we're at the cusp of that. Give us another couple of months, this is going to be mainstream soon.
No, I mean, it sounds really exciting, right? I mean, so many industries can benefit, from the efficiencies from drones. I mean, look at agriculture, for example, right? Very large areas of land, expensive, time-consuming, difficult to cover with people alone. The drones is basically a game changer.
Precisely.
I'm now going to switch gears to the sustainability of business models. A lot of people, when they talk about tech, they talk about digital businesses. How sustainable, are these businesses? And in line with sustainability of business model, we always refer to brand versus platform versus and how consumers, are loyal towards, brand versus platform. I'm going to pose this, first question to Patrick, given your many experiences with many types of brands, from iProperty to Carlist to iFlix. I mean, Patrick, are consumers, from your observation and your experience, loyal to brand or platform? In your view, what are the drivers behind such consumption stickiness?
Wow. Yeah, you know what? I mean, there's so many ways to answer that question, and I think it really depends on the brand. And kind of touch on what Eric said before, right? If your company is so customer centric and you're always trying to figure out what problems can you solve for the customer, then yes, the customer is going to be loyal to your brand. And one of the things that I often say that the greatest sectors to invest in, if you're a digital entrepreneur or digital investor, are to invest in companies that are disrupting incumbents with very bad NPS scores, right? So these are companies that are not serving the customers. The customers won't use that supplier again. The customers, they want a different solution. And so when you can build a digital company or a digital platform or a digital brand to disrupt an incumbent with really bad NPS scores, then half the battle is done, right? And so I think sometimes it's not so much about focusing on your brand, it's focusing on your customer promise, right? If you give the customer something better, cheaper, faster, then of course they're going to use you, right? So when we looked at iProperty, you can find what house is for sale on Wednesday night at midnight, whereas our incumbent, we were competing against the newspaper, and the newspaper only comes out with the classified listings on Saturday. So you got to wait till Saturday to see what properties are for sale, right? So it wasn't about building our brand. It was just about giving the customer something better, right? Something better, something cheaper, faster. When you look at what Carson is doing today, right? I actually calculated Carson will sell 30 cars whilst we're on this panel, right? And if you go back, that's a car every 2 minutes that's being sold online. That means someone didn't go to the used car dealer. Someone just went online, opened the app, like hit a few buttons and either sold a car or bought a car every 2 minutes, right? And so when you think about it's are people loyal to the Carson brand? Yeah, I think they are, but it's not so much the brand. They're more loyal to the customer promise, right? It's the ease, it's better, it's cheaper, it's faster. It's like as long as you are better than the offline incumbents, then I think online platforms end up building great brands, end up building great customer loyalty, end up having high NPS scores. So at the end of the day, we always tell teams and management that just because I'm an internet company doesn't mean I've won. At the end of the day, you have to give the customer something better, cheaper, and faster. And if you do all three, then you will win, and then you'll have people loyal to your brand.
No, I like how you position that. I mean, you're disrupting a business with low NPS scores, right? So then, price becomes irrelevant because you're just giving them a totally different experience. And then you actually answered the question I was going to ask Eric, because I was going to ask Eric, look, if customers are so focused on price, how do you ensure loyalty towards the Carson brand in the long run? But I guess the answer is exactly what Patrick said, right, Eric? It's all about you coming into an industry that has a low NPS score. The experience has been tedious, has been difficult. You're just coming with a totally different experience and trust.
Yep. I think price is ultimately always a factor, right? A consideration factor when it comes to buying anything. As car, especially, you want to be able to get the best deal in town. But there's very subjective, right? Towards especially a used car, they're all differentiated assets. Like it's not the same, right? Even though it's the exact same model, same age, condition could be different, color could be different. And I think when you look at that as Carson as a brand, we assure of that quality confidence, the assurance over there. And hence you see us, every car that we sell, we have a 1-year warranty, we have that 5 days money back, even if you don't like it, that because the boot can't fit your golf club, it's fine, you can return it back to us and change one another car, a bigger one boot. So, but I think that translate into good customer experience, right? That translate into how we do things, right? The way we service our customers, not just on the online environment, also in the offline environment when we deliver the cars to the doorstep. Like I have not seen any other car manufacturers or anyone who's selling a car would deliver a car with a truck, right? So, and I think that's what we do. So we want to be able to champion that and give a better experience. And what translate in terms of like our NPS score is we have never seen it drop less than 70 from the time that we started the business. And if you compare to the industry standard, like guys like CarMax, who is the biggest used car brand in the US, they're doing about on average 10 NPS of all time. So, that drastic upgrade is something that where price when we want to make sure that this is in line with the market price, we're giving the best deal. Everything that comes with a car purchase would be a very important factor in making that decision. That translates into good brand trust. And when you bring it over and replicate this experience into other countries, one thing that you want to be mindful is whether you can uphold this standard, this mindset when it comes to expansion, when it comes to hiring people, when it comes to the message that you send across. So these things are measured in the end by things like NPS score. But ultimately, that helps a lot in creating a brand that can help draw more customers in using you.
Now it's interesting. So Patrick mentioned experience from iProperty, so buying property, and therefore that was a new experience created for clients, for customers, or for people. Eric spoke about cars. Now I want to talk about banking, Effendi. So I mean, the Touch and Go e-wallet, your JV with N Group, you mentioned, right? Largest e-wallet in the country. You have the digital banks in Vietnam, Philippines. It's fast growing. Now, how do you see the elements of brand versus platform versus customer retention, feature in your businesses in the banking space? I mean, you have CIMB proper, you have CIMB digital. How do you see brand versus platform and customer retention?
Yeah, I think great question, Novan. I think brand is phenomenally important, right? But I think what you got to do is you got to put brand within context, right? And I think I won't be alone to say that banks have generally enjoyed very good brand patronage over the years, plainly because what banks offered were not offered by anyone else, right? And I think that in the evolution of financial services and fintech, that's now truly not the case. So whilst brand gives you a leg in, like for example, Touch and Go is a big brand in Malaysia. When we launched the e-wallet with Ant, a lot of the reasons why we've been able to also get the things of subscribers is because that brand is known, because that brand has transacted with people of Malaysia over the years. But that alone is not enough. I think that at the end of the day, the concept of customer loyalty will tie down into value delivery, right? So I think Eric touched on that very significantly in terms of altering the experience of what a customer. For example, today at the Touch and Go companies, we are already working with banks, right? More so with one, as imagine, we bring differentiated kind of products and services to the customers, right? How do you intermediate a segment of the personal lending market that today is not catered for by banks and today does not have the experience in terms of how offtake products. In the example of the Philippines, CIMB as a large banking brand helped because it gave it trust.
Yeah.
But the day it still required contextually tailoring the proposition to the market environment. And there we worked very closely with some partners, not obsessed with having or heaving everything ourselves. We were like-minded people who wanted to provide differentiated offering. At the end of the day, in each of our businesses, and I think the panelists would agree with me, it is about value delivery. And it's about value delivery within the context of your target audience. And if you make people's life better at price points that are similar or slightly better, then technically speaking, you will not be cast away, right? So I think that the brand is important, platforms are, credibility is, value delivery in the market segment is the absolute priority. That's my view of it.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. At the end of the day, when it comes to a bank, even if it's a digital bank, highly efficient, I'm not sure if I want to park a lot of cash there, if I'm not sure if it's going to be around the next couple of years. What's most important is, trust, track record, capital, to basically ensure that your money is safe. Now, I'm going to ask Amir.
Yeah,
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Effendi. Sorry.
No, go ahead, Novan.
Okay.
I didn't have it.
Okay. I'm not going to switch gears to Amir because we've been speaking about B2C, right? With property, with cars, with banks. It's really B2C. Now, Amir, yours is largely it is a B2B business. How are these key drivers to loyalty among your clients different?
Well, I think, a lot has been said by Patrick, Eric, and Effendi. A lot of very, very valuable and valid points. I wanted to expand that thought a little bit, right? Because I think there are a lot of parallels between customer stickiness in the B2C segment as well as the B2B segment, which we operate in, right? For us, we do believe that, when there's already an incumbent system, you create a new system that renders the incumbent system obsolete. Right? And for us, they're similar with what Patrick talked about, faster, better, cheaper. Our basic principles of the services that we offer in Aerodyne are faster, better, cheaper, safer. And in Japanese words, haya, yasu, umai, anden, right? So we expanded it to be safer because we manage like industrial assets and stuff like that. For us, what faster actually means is we reduce, for example, inspection time from 5 days to 1. And that's easily like a 500% reduction in inspection time, right? Better is the wealth of data that our clients will get, as opposed to a man on a skylift taking pictures and writing down notes about telecommunication towers, right? Of course, with flight planning and the wealth of data and insights that we provide from our data platforms, obviously that's much better than the incumbent. When we talk about cheaper, we're approximately 20-30% cheaper than conventional methods, right? And when I talk about safer, we haven't had an LTI incident at all, since we started operations. And for example, imagine the implications for all the oil and gas industry. For example, how do you do an under-deck survey for an oil rig? For people, you have to abseil, you have to wear harnesses and stuff like that. For us, it's a matter of a flick the switch, and the drone just picks up, captures data underneath an oil rig, right? I mean, that's so much safer than having a human intervention. So also building on the point of value proposition for us, since we're in the data platform business, we build systems that are readily integrated or seamless with our clients' ERPs. Right, that means a whole value digital disruption of the whole value system, which means that from all the way from the mission planning all the way to reporting, everything is done through digital means, right? On as easy as something on a mobile app, for example, as opposed to all this paperwork, imagery, reporting, etc. Very, very cumbersome. So I think the key point that I'm trying to make is that once the standards of asset management, which is in our field, have been elevated from using these solutions, once you're used to the good stuff, you don't want to go back, right? It's a whole different perspective than what market is used to, and I guess this, in my humble opinion, is what the key driver of stickiness is, which is a lot of parallels with B2C.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's interesting hearing from the four of you. General perception out there a lot about tech sometimes is, the amount of money spent on customer acquisition cost. Is it sustainable? Clearly, from what you've articulated, if you're creating a new experience, a better experience, you're bringing trust, you're bringing reliability, more efficiency. It's all about bringing a better product and not necessarily just, spending a lot of money on customer acquisition costs. It's about building that better product, bringing that better product to market that basically makes this a lot more sustainable. Okay, I'm gonna ask some questions from the attendees that has been posted on the live chat. The first one is directed to Patrick. So one question from the attendees. So there have been some views about specs. And you raised a spec earlier this year. In fact, you were the first company out of Malaysia to have done a US spec. You were the first. Why are you so bullish on this?
Yeah, look, one of the things that, and you'll see it if you follow the tech press, you'll see that every week there's been a new unicorn in Southeast Asia, right? And Carson is one of those great companies as well. And so what you're seeing is that last year, Southeast Asia probably only had 4 unicorns. Southeast Asia will probably close this year with something like 20 to 25 unicorns. And so if you think about a company worth over $1 billion US, it gets to a point where it doesn't make sense to keep raising money privately. At some point, you need to tap the capital markets, whether it's Bursa or SGX or NYSE or NASDAQ. At some point, you get to a certain size where it's back to the conversation earlier, it's better, cheaper, and faster to raise capital as a public company compared to being a private company, right? And faster is most certainly one of the reasons, right? And so when you have 25 unicorns in Southeast Asia at the end of this year, those companies need to go public. They can't continuously raise money privately. It's not optimum, and it's not the right thing to do of a company of that size. And so when you think about that, that means there's 25 companies now that need to go public somewhere in the world, whether it's Malaysia or Singapore or Hong Kong or the US, they need to go public somewhere. And so we raised a SPAC because we realized that, number one, that's a huge macro trend that we can't run away from. Number two is that, we've been in the tech sector for so long. We've been so fortunate that we have founded or been part of a number of public companies. And so we're very aware that being public versus being very private, it could be a weapon. It could be a secret weapon to do M&A, grow faster, reward staff, and so many other great things. And so we recognize that if we at Catcher can help be a catalyst for a lot of these great companies tap public capital markets, and the SPAC can be one of those tools to do that, then look, this is definitely an area that we're very interested to be in.
I think when it was first announced about the SGX spec, I think sometimes people forget that Bursa has actually started a spec quite some time ago. It was
That's right.
It was mainly oil and gas, right? There has been a success story, but hopefully we could see more of these flourish in the near future. The next question from the floor will be to Effendi. So why did Touch 'n Go not apply for a digital banking license? I think it was quite public in terms of the parties that applied for the license. It seems such a natural fit for Touch 'n Go to do so. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that there's a few things here. Like first and foremost, most people think that the digital sense it's a slam dunk business. And I think we've been in banking for a long time and you do it. Now, does it have a great chance of being successful? Yes. Is it a really interesting space? Yes. Is it a space that we're interested in? Yes. But there are a few things that you have to believe in order to put an application in, right? So the first thing is that we decided very early on that we will not evolve the wallet, the Touch 'n Go e-wallet business into a bank. Plainly because we feel that the economics of intermediation and the economics of payments, economics of a platform company that is not banking related has a lot of potential, right? And this is really proven by some of the other companies who are fairly large in the world today, and we want to stay in the space. So between us and Ant, we said, we're going to KNG e-wallet business the way it is. However, it wasn't something that we dispelled at CIMB and Touch 'n Go level. And the first thing that we said that if we do apply for a digital bank license, we will do it outside of CIMB. And the second criteria that had to be fulfilled was we very early on said that if we cannot get a consortium together that we feel could really synergize and put things together and create a good business model, we also would not be in a rush to do it. So when the deadlines came, it was attractive. It was something that we looked at, but at the end of the day, we didn't feel that we got it all together, so we didn't apply. But having said that, though, Touch 'n Go as a group continue to talk to many of these applicants. Certainly, there's a lot of commercial partnerships that are in play, and who knows, maybe some equity partnerships as well as we go forward. So, I think that it's not that we didn't want to apply. It's not that we didn't do the work and just that this doesn't fit. But I think we looked at it very closely. And being a bank ourselves, we knew really, really well what were some of the pain points that needed to be solved in order for digital bank to survive. So that's really and honestly the reason behind it.
I guess at the end of the day, even after the licenses are issued, there's still different permutations in terms of who the partners could be, right? I mean, one party, could win a license, but you can always change the permutations with regards to, who those partners or, shareholders could be over time. Okay.
Yeah, and I think, Novan, the whole adage of banking and the narrative has changed so much, right? Mm-hmm. In a sense that today we're not at digital bank 1.0 anymore. We're not even at 2.0 anymore, right? Mm. And for digital banks to succeed, there needs to be a huge ecosystem play behind it. Mm-hmm. And I think that, as things go on, and given the size of the ecosystem that Touch 'n Go today is, I do think that something along the horizons will be there where we play the game. In what shape or form, I don't know, but let's see.
Okay. Next question from the floor, directed to both Eric and Amir. Perhaps we can start first with Eric. Any concerns around budget 2022 and windfall taxes to your business?
So, yeah. I think overall it's been exciting, right? You saw EV has become something that the government embrace the removal of tax for next year. Mm-hmm. I think ever since that, there have been a lot of reach out from various parties to see how we can champion this a lot more. It helps that now we also have EVs on the platform, right? Tesla, we are selling, which if you are interested in buying one, just go to the platform. But ultimately, we see this as something that is helping, right? Both there's some announcement towards the digital economy as well, how government's going to allocate more budgets, and I think a lot of this has been encouraging. Something that I think in the previous couple of years has not been really put in place to help create a more vibrant digital economy. So overall, it's a good news to the industry for cars and also for digital companies.
I would echo that. I mean, for us, we are bullish on the budget 2022. No particular concerns, but for us, we're quite happy that there is emphasis on the aerospace industry where we are in. is not just emphasized in the budget, but also the 12 Malaysia plan, whereby the government has put in plans to make sure there's talent upskilling and create data scientists and provide R&D grants, etc., etc. So I think these are steps in the right direction. I think we hope that there is more of these initiatives, where there are more of these initiatives moving forward, in the years to come.
Okay. I have some questions, that came to me prior to the session. Although, not strictly an entrepreneur building, panel, but anyway, here goes the questions for Patrick. So your journey as an entrepreneur has been full of ups and downs. How do you advise other entrepreneurs to persevere through the bad times?
Wow, this could be like 6 hours overnight, like one of my favorite topics. Look, I would say, number one, just be really passionate in the problem that you're solving. So whatever it is, the business that you're trying to build, like for Fendi, right? He's trying to democratize great digital banking access to everyone, and Eric's trying to make buying cars better, cheaper, faster for everyone. Like whatever it is that you're part of, like be so passionate about that problem. Like don't be in it for the paycheck. Don't be in it because it looks good on LinkedIn. Like be so passionate about that problem, because every business has ups and downs. Like every freaking business has ups and downs. And anyone who tells you that they don't have any downs is lying, right? So accept that there's going to be challenges. There's going to be bumps along the way. And if you're so passionate about the problem that your business is solving, then you will naturally have the perseverance, to keep going through. It's like anyone on the panel who is a parent. Like if there's something wrong with your son or child, like you don't care. Like you'll move heaven and earth to do something for your child. Like if Andy's even on the board of his kid's school because he's so passionate, right, about being committed, right? So number one is pick a company or a business model that you're so passionate about solving. And if you are passionate about solving that, then you'll be committed to having the perseverance whenever there's bumps along the way, because there always will be.
I agree. I couldn't agree more about passion. One question I have is for Effendi. So you're basically a veteran banker in traditional banking. You've spent more than 20 years there. You've held leadership roles in investment bank, asset management, prop equity investments, commercial banking. Now moving into fintech. How does managing fintech assets differ in comparison to your previous role in traditional banking?
You've got to be prepared to say things that people are uncomfortable with. I think that's first and foremost, right? I think that if I think back to how we started this journey and how we thought about differentiated models and how we said that we don't have to use our branches to originate business of ours and how we have to share economics. I do think that it does require a slightly different mindset. I think that large banks especially, are here to stay, right? But I do think disruption is fierce. Obviously our margins are being eroded away. But I think it's how everyone reacts to it. And the only way to react to it is to go into an area where everyone is uncomfortable talking about, right? I'm fortunate to have been able to work for some really good people at CIMB over the years, Nazir, Zafrul, and certainly now Rahman, who are not afraid to have those conversations. But I think that, in order to really make that transition, you really have to say that, okay, this is what we're doing today. Great, it's profitable, but what's not so good about it? And let's worry about what's not so good instead of what's going great, right? And how do you then evolve the organization in terms of mindset change, in terms of advocacy, in terms of board education? It's a process, Novan, and I'm telling you, it's not easy, and I'm sure you guys can agree with me, but I do think that there needs to be a certain level of bravery to go into some waters that you're not so comfortable with, and when you're swimming in them, you will find that it opens up a completely different dimension that hopefully one can immerse into the whole organization, right? So I think it's about that. It's about really wanting to do something different, and I like Patrick's narrative behind it, doing something that is really important for the people that you're doing it for, and staying the course. And we feel that that's the right way to take it, right? So that's roughly some nuggets. Again, it's a 6-day question of answers, but but there's quite a lot in it.
Yeah, I mean, it's what I've heard so far is passion, as well as getting out of your comfort zone. Now, speaking of comfort zone, Eric, you went through, from what I understand, a difficult journey pitching the Kasem business to many, many investors in your initial seed round. What would you have liked to have known, when you first started Kasem, or were you expecting that challenge already?
Yeah, I actually embrace that, right? If you ask me whether I want to do it differently, I wouldn't, because to be honest, a lot of things are really built based on the experience, right? The mistakes that you make and how do you correct it from there. And I think building a business is as much as trying to make as many right decisions as possible. And I think for us is sometimes you just have to learn from the past, learn from the experience to see what you can where you can get inspirations. And I think I took that journey as at heart, right? Like really trying to embrace it and build a path from there. And like everyone that would echo over here is that perseverance comes from very much your passion, right? Do you really believe in solving that big problem and sticking to it and keep improvising until you find the perfect solution to it, right? And I think what would be a lot more useful is that I started off with an environment that there's no community or that there's no formalized community that help embrace entrepreneurship. Which there are people who are very helpful, mentor me along the way, and I think these are very much different small groups where if they combine and create something of a community where people could gain experience and absorb as many good things as possible to help them kickstart their company. Probably the path to where we are today can be a lot faster. Probably they can avoid some really stupid mistakes and head towards a more viable path. And that help cultivates a better ecosystem, right? And more great companies like Aerodyne, like us, like everyone else that you're seeing right now. It could be like 10 people on this panel because you don't know who to invite, like to limit it to like 25, right? So I think that's where the community could help. That's where I think at the beginning, if we have that, that's going to be very helpful. But without that, I think it's fine. Like again, is building a business. That's what we are ready for it.
And my last question today to Amir. I mean, you have a very wide global footprint, presence in 35 countries. What advice would you give, to startups with similar aspirations?
Well, this is one of those we're talking about 6-day questions, right?
It's a 7-day. It's a 7-day journey.
Yeah, I think the first tip that perhaps one learning that we have done over the years is that never go in alone, right? So you want to expand to a new geography, never ever go alone. We spend quite a fair bit of time looking for the right partners in different geographies to help us navigate the microeconomic landscape, right? But you never know, for us, that's sort of the greenfield route, start setting up a new office, whatever, looking for partners to help us do that. But the other route is a brownfield route. Is you have the balance sheet, you can do M&A, right? But at the same time, it's getting to know your partner, and it's not just M&A for M&A's sake, right? I mean, there must be an objective for this, right? Market access or technological expertise, acqui-hires, etc., etc. But the due diligence on all those softer aspects of business, we actually spend a fair bit of time doing that, on top of the normal, legal, commercial, financial due diligence, etc. I guess the other tip that we have learned is that of course everybody wants to go international, but I guess to ensure that your existing infrastructure can cater to this aggressive expansion strategy of yours, right? So, for example, we've seen peers in the market. Unfortunate, during the pandemic, we've seen some companies fold, and some companies were in deep waters because their infrastructure was not ready to cater for this aggressive expansion plan. They were not able to create value, and hence they imploded because the existing infrastructure, be it performance management systems or governance, and also even their people, for example, not ready to manage this stretch of the Roman Empire, so to speak, right? And Rome collapsed because there was no proper governance system to cater for them all. So I think the point about readiness is one thing. The point about infrastructure is another, and the last one is the partnership, making sure you have the right partner in the different markets that you want to grow.
Okay. So basically, passion, going out of your comfort zone, mentorship, don't go alone, making sure your infrastructure is ready. I like the tagline today from Patrick, which is better, cheaper, faster. Now, gentlemen, thank you very much for your time on behalf of Bursa Malaysia and JP Morgan. Thank you for joining this session today. And we look forward to hearing again from you soon. But these are exciting times indeed. Thank you.